Just imagine an advanced machine that could implant any type of memory into a patient's mind. For example, they could feel like they were Superman, a bandit, or an astronaut in their dreams. At the beginning of this story, we are introduced to a man named Douglas, who was on a mission on Mars with his wife. Both of them are walking comfortably on the surface of Mars, but suddenly Douglas slips and falls. Douglas's oxygen helmet is completely broken, making it impossible for him to breathe in the Martian environment. Douglas was about to die within moments, but then he suddenly wakes up from his deep dream. Douglas does not understand why he was having such a dream. His wife, Lori, is also present there and is telling him to stay calm. Douglas only remembers that the woman in the dream was not his wife but another girl, and he kept having such dreams for some unknown reason. Now Douglas gets up and heads to his construction site after taking a shower. There, he watches the news on TV, reporting that terrorists have attacked the Mars mission. These terrorists have made some demands which the government has not met, so they have taken over the entire astronaut base on Mars. It was said that astronauts had found a strange metal in the Martian soil, which was so precious that selling it had made the president quite rich. However, the president denied having any such metal, only promising to eliminate the terrorists. After finishing his daily work, Douglas gets on the train and sees an advertisement for a company called Total Recall. This advertisement features a unique machine that could implant any desired memories into a patient's mind. After implanting these memories, the patient would feel as though they had actually experienced those things. Douglas decides to use this company's machine to implant some memories into his mind. He was very fond of the Martian environment, so he wanted to fit all the scenes of Mars's atmosphere into his mind. Douglas tells the Total Recall people that he wants to go to Mars with a woman. She would stay with him the entire time and conduct the mission. Douglas had designed his entire story to resemble the dream he kept having. As soon as Douglas was placed inside the machine, he suddenly started feeling unwell and began to sweat profusely. The doctors present quickly shut down the machine. Upon reviewing Douglas's report, the doctors discovered that similar experiments had been conducted on him before. They decided to erase all of Douglas's memories, so he would no longer remember that he had been there. Afterward, when Douglas returned to work, one of his colleagues attacked him. Douglas couldn't understand why all these things were happening, but he managed to escape and return home. Douglas told his wife Lori that some people were after him to kill him. Although Lori insisted that it was just a figment of his imagination, Douglas was convinced because he had his own blood on his hand. After their conversation, when Douglas went to the bathroom, Lori had called an agent to come to their place. When Douglas came out, Lori was standing in front of him with a gun. But Douglas cleverly restrained his own wife, asking her why she was attacking him. Lori then revealed the whole truth. Lori told Douglas that she was not his wife, but had been sent by the governor to carry out this mission. However, it was surprising that Douglas had 6 years' worth of memories with his wife, but Lori explained that all these memories had been implanted in his mind. She had only been acting as his wife for a few weeks. Douglas then saw the agents arriving on the CCTV camera, so he knocked out Lori and quickly escaped. The people were working for the governor and continuously pursued Douglas. Douglas had no idea where he was going because his memories were still hazy. Douglas then ended up in a hotel, where he decided to hide. Suddenly, he received a video call from an unknown man, who informed him that they had both worked together on the Mars mission and that the entire plan was orchestrated by the governor. He had erased your entire memory and had also implanted a tracking device in your brain, which could monitor your location at any time. Gradually, Douglas began to understand everything, and the man who was actually Douglas's friend promised to give him a briefcase. The man went outside and left the briefcase. Douglas immediately went to get it. To obtain the briefcase, he even had to fight an insane old woman. However, following the tracking device, many of the governor's people began to pursue Douglas. Douglas, with the briefcase in hand, managed to escape and took refuge in an old factory. When he opened the briefcase, he found a lot of money inside, along with a videotape. After playing the tape, Douglas saw his own face on the screen. After listening to the message, Douglas learned that his real name was Cal, and he used to work for a government facility. Cal also revealed that the ongoing rebellion on Mars was somewhat justified because the governor and his political team were stripping people of their rights and privileges. Furthermore, something was happening on Mars that no one could have imagined. Therefore, Cal advised that Douglas must head to Mars as soon as possible. The briefcase also contained a ticket to Mars. Now, Douglas, whose real name was Cal, changed his appearance and set off towards the space station to travel to Mars. Meanwhile, the secret agent and his team arrived to find Douglas. They reached the factory where Douglas was watching the videos, so they now knew where Douglas had gone. They set off towards the space station to capture him. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to catch Douglas. He managed to board a spaceship and reach Mars. The secret agents and their team arrived soon after. Douglas had changed his appearance to hide, and this technique proved very useful for him. On Mars, many humans had started to live in their own civilization. Cal arrived at a hotel where he received a letter mentioning a woman named Melina. Cal then went to meet Melina, and a taxi driver took him there. Cal noticed that the faces of the people around looked quite strange. The taxi driver explained that the Martian environment had caused these changes in humans. Soon, Cal met Melina, and he was shocked to find that she was the same woman who appeared in his dreams. Melina immediately slapped Cal and questioned why he was there. Cal then explained to Melina that his memories had been erased and he had been placed on Earth by the governor. However, Melina did not believe Cal and suspected that he was now working with the governor and wanted to kill the rebels. Therefore, she asked Cal to leave. Shortly after, a doctor appeared and told Cal that he was still in his dreams. The doctor explained that this was related to when Douglas first came to the recall company with a dream he wanted implanted in his mind. They had used their machine to show him the dream, but now he was stuck in it. The doctor had come to rescue Douglas. Melina also arrived, but Cal was confused about whether he was Douglas or Cal, and whether he was still dreaming. Douglas then placed a gun on the doctor's forehead, saying that if this were a dream, the doctor could never die. Seeing the gun, the doctor began to sweat, and Douglas realized that this was not a dream but reality. Suddenly, many of the governor's people burst through the walls and knocked Douglas out. They were taking Douglas away with them, but Melina arrived with her allies and took Douglas to a safe place. In the chaos, Lori was shot and died immediately. Melina, along with her companions and Douglas, began to leave the area. The people with Melina were actually rebels who had been severely affected by the Martian environment. However, the governor wanted everyone there to work according to his orders, which is why Melina and her group were rebelling against him. The governor soon realized that Melina had hidden Douglas in his own facility, so he ordered his men to cut off the entire area's oxygen supply. The governor threatened that if they did not hand Douglas over quickly, he would completely shut off the oxygen supply, which could result in the deaths of everyone there. Douglas's case had become quite famous across Mars, so a man named George called Douglas to him. George seated Douglas and began questioning him about what was inside the pyramids. However, Douglas couldn't remember anything about it because the governor had erased all his memories. The situation had become very serious because George knew that if the governor did not turn the oxygen supply back on, everyone would die. Therefore, George decided that Douglas must be introduced to Quentin at any cost. Quentin was the leader of all the rebels and had never been seen by anyone. He only came from time to help everyone. George took Douglas to a room, but then, at the next moment, George began to undress. Douglas was initially frightened, thinking the man had gone mad, but then a man's head and legs began to emerge from George's abdomen. Due to the Martian environment, George had also become a mutant, a condition that arose because of the environmental effects there. In reality, the Quentin George was talking about was none other than the being emerging from George. Quentin had the ability to think for himself and possessed many powers. He could read a person's entire memory by capturing them. However, since Douglas's memories had been erased, it was uncertain whether Quentin would find anything. Nonetheless, Quentin began reading the memories still lingering in Douglas's subconscious mind. And now, the reality comes to light that beneath the massive pyramids on Mars, there is a highly powerful reactor. This reactor, built by aliens years ago, has the potential to transform Mars's environment to be like Earth's. Activating this reactor would balance the oxygen levels on Mars and start producing life-sustaining elements, allowing humanity to thrive once more on the red planet. The aliens had used this very method to bring large pyramids to Earth and, with the help of their reactors, made Earth's environment suitable for human habitation. However, when the governor and his entourage arrived on Mars, he did not want the reactor to be activated. He was determined to keep Mars's environment as it was, because activating the reactor would make Mars like Earth, potentially leading to a shift of Earth's governments and people to Mars. The governor only desired to maintain his rule over Mars, so he kept the reactor turned off. After discovering these facts, when Douglas and George attempted to leave, the governor's men attacked them. Due to a powerful explosion, George was severely injured and captured by the governor's forces. Douglas and Melina were then presented before the governor. Seeing the dead bodies of George and Quentin, the governor was very pleased, believing that with Quentin, the leader of the rebels, dead, the remaining rebels would cease their rebellion. The governor revealed another truth to Douglas: he had been working for the governor all along. The governor's plan was to track George and Quentin's locations by sending Douglas to Earth, making him believe that he was enemies with them. The governor had anticipated that George and Quentin would eventually come to Douglas, and now he had successfully completed his mission. But before the governor's men could erase Melina and Douglas's memories, Douglas went berserk. He broke out of the machine that was supposed to erase their memories and managed to escape. Douglas, seeing the opportunity, began to take down all the doctors in his path. He managed to rescue Melina, and they started to escape. However, the governor was still in their way. With all the information he had gathered, Douglas was determined to activate the reactor. To achieve this, he destroyed a part of the reactor, causing a massive explosion that sent the governor and his entire team flying outside the shield. They couldn't survive even a second in Mars's environment and were instantly disintegrated. With the governor defeated, Douglas successfully activated the reactor. This triggered the pyramid, which began to transform Mars's environment to be like Earth's. Proper levels of oxygen and other life-sustaining elements started to emerge from the pyramid, turning Mars into a habitable world. The people, who had been suffering due to Mars's harsh environment, began to recover. There was no longer any need for fear, as everything was being set right. Melina came to Douglas and gave him a loving kiss. And with that, our science fiction movie comes to an end.